Hello everyone and welcome back to this week's podcast where we're going to talk to you about the ins and outs in the world of mixed martial arts. We've got two big events coming up today to talk about. I'm joined by our UFC expert, Joshua Dubz Whittaker.
Hello.
Yes, there he is. And then we've also got Dylan with us to supplement that.
Hello, thank you, George. That's not very kind.
Right, so obviously we have UFC 235 this weekend, most stat card we've ever seen.
Yeah.
But we've also got more in the future, but it's definitely on the way, is UFC London. And that's massive, isn't it?
Huge, and it's always a big event when the UFC comes over to London. I mean, I only found out today that London is the second most frequent host to the UFC, which is quite something.
Second to only Las Vegas.
Yeah, only to Las Vegas. You would have thought it could have been elsewhere, somewhere in America, but yeah, it's always going to be a big event, and two very big and very exciting British fighters fighting on that card.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's great for UFC London that they've managed to get Till on the card. Obviously, Till has been in the spotlight recently in terms of, British MMA fighters. Obviously, his recent loss to Tyron Woodley via Darce choke, which was, I must say, for us British fans, it was very disheartening to see how dominant Tyron Woodley was over Till. Till just looked really hesitant. He wasn't throwing any shots. He was trying to bide his time. But against a guy like Tyron Woodley, who can finish you at any point in the fight, it's just, he really should have been, it was his title shot. He should be going out there, all guns blazing, looking for that finish. And just, I really feel like he didn't do himself proud and he didn't do himself justice. So in this upcoming fight against Masvidal, he really has got a lot to prove. And I think he's going to want to give the fans something to scream for, especially because if you look at his fight in Liverpool against Thompson, once again, it was almost another stalemate. That it was very slow. He did get the knockdown late on, but they just weren't throwing enough shots. He wasn't aggressive enough. That from Till on the 16th of March, I want to see a much more aggressive fighter.
Do you feel that we'll go back to the Wonder Boy you were just saying then, it was a bit of a stalemate, like you said. Did you not think that was just a cagey, tactical, brilliant encounter in many ways, that they were both trying to suss each other out? They both kind of couldn't in many ways.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, when you get two guys who are that good at striking, they obviously are going to be scared to throw shots at each other. No one wants to get countered, and that's the thing. They are both counter strikers. So when you're both waiting for each other to throw punches, it's always going to be a cagey fight. But I feel against Masvidal now, he's a born and bred street fighter.
Yeah, we saw him on YouTube, didn't we? He took on Kimbo Slice's protege, absolutely destroyed him.
Yeah, well.
Either way. But let me get back to a different question now. Do you think that Darren Till has a lot to prove then, coming into this fight, after you say the Woodley fight was a bit disappointing, but at the same time, Woodley I think that was his fourth to halt defence beating Till, and he's just a dominant, brilliant fighter. Do you think he has a lot to prove, or do you think, actually, first loss on the board, we're not that worried for you, Darren?
I wouldn't necessarily he has a lot to prove. I'd just say there was a lot of hype surrounding Till going into those fights. He went into that fight as the favourite, which, that is a lot of pressure on his shoulders. I think this fight now, it's you want to say an easier fight, because obviously he's not fighting the champion, but you still expect him to go in there and get a finish. That's what you would expect from Till.
Yeah, and that's what Till said that he's going to come out and do. He said he wants to knock his head off within 30 seconds. So I think what fans want to see is they want to see the Darren Till that came out against Cowboy, against Cerrone. He was electric in that, and that is what kind of blew him up and got the hype so massive.
Yeah.
So.
Shall we have a little listen to a clip here of Darren Till just before the fight, just basically just saying what his intentions are, really?
How difficult is it going to be to stick to a game plan?
I just want to knock Masvidal out in 30 seconds. So
that is the game plan.
The Wonderboy fight was different because you'd have to calculate him, because I'm not taking anything away from him, but he runs away, and I had to chase him, but I also had to be careful of spinning kicks and stuff like that, because if a heel at that speed hits you in the chin, it doesn't matter how hard your chin is, you're going to sleep.
Well, a question for Dubz now. Who do you think, I know like you say that Masvidal's a big brawler, a big street fighter, he'll try and take the fight to Woodley and try and make it a scrap. Do you think that Till has to be extra careful in that sense tactically, like he was against Wonderboy, scared for the kicks and the punches? Or do you think actually Till can throw himself at him?
I think Till, he's a good counter striker. So I think Masvidal is going to come with a heat. He's going to throw a lot of punches, and I think Till is just not necessarily got to do the same. He's just got to sort of sit back and pick his punches well and just counter him. And if he can counter him successfully, I could see him finishing it in the first round.
Dylan, do you agree there?
Yeah, I completely agree. And Till is, again, like he is in most of his welterweight bouts, he is a far bigger opponent as well. He's going to want to use his reach, use his range, and he has such a good judge of range. So he can. I really feel like he can control this fight the way he wants, and I think that it is going to be a Till win.
I think that has to be another talking point as well, is whether he can make the weight, because we saw against Wonderboy, he came in 4 pounds over, which is big. So who knows? Could this be Till's last fight at welterweight? Could we see him move up to middleweight soon? I think
although it would make sense, and a lot of people have said, why hasn't he moved up to middleweight? He's got the build of a middleweight. He walks around at a middleweight's weight.
Yeah.
But I think that he wants to prove a point in this welterweight division now. I think there's been so much talk about him cutting weight, him looking horrible on the day of weight cut, and I think that he want to prove a point and try and get that rematch with Woodley.
And obviously it is a big advantage for him being a bigger guy at welterweight.
Exactly. We saw Conor when he came in at featherweight to begin with.
Exactly.
And he overturned the division within a year or so. So yeah, it can be done.
Yeah, I don't think this is. I'm not sure if this is a tell sign or not. Obviously, Till beat Wonderboy. That was last year. Masvidal hasn't fought since November 2017, where he lost to Wonderboy.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a psychological edge Till may have, or do you think Masvidal's just going to go out there and try and prove everyone wrong in that sense?
I think Masvidal's the sort of fighter who not even necessarily fights to win, he fights to fight. So I think no matter what, Masvidal is going to go into this fight and he's going to give it his all, no matter what happened in his last fight. I think psychologically, it might give the edge to Till, but then again, you've got to think of Till's last loss to Wonderboy. Does that give Masvidal the slight psychological advantage? So it works both ways.
Yep. Till is third on the welterweight rankings. Masvidal 10th.
Yeah.
A loss for Till in this fight would send his career into reverse. Is it something that is even possible? Do you think Till actually should be scared coming into this fight after a loss to Woodley, or do you think this is the perfect bounce back fight he needs to then maybe get another title fight, get straight back in there?
Look, I think that Till should be confident in his own ability because his striking is at an elite level, and I think he has shown that in many fights. And against a fighter of Wonderboy's talent, he's got one of the best stand up in the UFC, and Till really not only held his own, but he came out victorious in that fight. So I think that he does have to go into this Masvidal fight with one intention, and that is getting an impressive finish. And if he gets an impressive finish, then that will just rocket him straight back up.
But upsets do happen as well. I mean, you look at Matt Serra when he beat George St. Pierre. I mean, who saw that coming?
Yeah.
No one. So, look, it's not out of the question that Masvidal wins this.
Of course not.
He's a very dangerous fighter. He's got knockout power. You know, great kickboxer and a street fighter. So, you know, it could go either way. But I think if Till wins this, who's next for him? Obviously, we've got Woodley fighting Usman. Colby Covington, he hasn't fought since he fought DeSantos last year, and he was stripped of the welterweight interim title. So could that be a stepping stone for Till? That's a fight I'd like to see if he wins this.
Yeah, Darren Till in press conferences before spoke about potentially fighting McGregor as a next fight, hopefully with the venue of Anfield. Obviously, Till being from Liverpool, McGregor being from Ireland, but a devout Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
How interesting would that be to see one of them two beat the other at Anfield in front of 50, 60,000 people? Is it possible, do you think?
You don't want to say anything's impossible, but when it comes with McGregor, the amount of names that I've seen chucked around
every name in the
fights,
UFC.
You
get DC
whole
chucked
division
in with him now. Yeah.
Anderson Silva, that was a talk. Come on, he's a middleweight, man. That's 3 weight classes.
Well, Till definitely said this was a little dream of his. But
of course it is. It's the biggest payday.
Us fans can only dream as well. That can be possible. But anyway, let's move on slightly. I want to talk about the co-main event, which will be Leon Edwards versus Gunnar Nelson. Both have very similar fighting records, both 16-3 losses. But Leon Edwards is definitely in the better form coming into this fight. I think he's won his last six wins. 5, and it will be his 6th, yeah. And Gunnar Nelson hasn't been so great recently, although his only other loss in the last sort of 12 months was a knockout which he feels he was poked in the eye. He appealed it and didn't get it. But anyway, what are your guys' thoughts going into this one? Because there was a lot of talk that Edwards would be fighting Till as the main event in this. But do you feel like Gunnar Nelson deserves to fight Edwards?
Yeah, 100%. I think this is sort of an eliminator now to see, who can get a top 5 opponent. If Gunnar Nelson wins this, he's back in contention. And if Leon Edwards wins this, like you say, he's been on a 6-fight win streak, which is, that I think that deserves a top 5 opponent. I think Leon Edwards is going to try to keep this one on the feet. Obviously, we know Gunnar Nelson is a very, very skilled Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a black belt. He has 13 wins by submission, which just shows how dangerous he is on the ground. And Leon Edwards, good kickboxer, definitely want to keep this one on the feet. He has got submission victories as well. Leon Edwards, he's got 3, but against a guy like Nelson, who's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think it would be very, very silly of him to try and take this fight to the ground, or even, try and stay on the ground.
Yeah, okay. What do you make of Leon Edwards' comments that he should have been the one fighting Till in the main event? Do you think it was necessary?
Yeah, it's definitely plausible. Of course, like he is going to want the bigger fight and think two Brits fight, a Briton and a Brit. It's always going to spark interest. You look at Paul Daly versus MVP recently, like that was at Bellator, obviously not the UFC, but that was still a massive fight. Sold a lot at pay-per-view. People like seeing grudge matches, and I think British versus British fighter, it's always going to attract more interest. But I still think this is a great fight. You got your typical stand-up fighter versus ground fighter, jiu-jitsu. Always interesting to see who's going to come out on top. I think despite that, it's still a great opportunity for Edwards to fight in front of his home crowd and prove to the UK fans, what he's got in his locker. His last loss was against Usman, and obviously Usman's fighting for the title this weekend. So
yeah,
he's a good fighter, and he's got a lot to prove.
Hypothetically, if both Brits win these fights, do you think Edwards will get the Till fight, or do you think Till winning against Masvidal would get him, a fight bigger than Edwards?
Yeah, I think there are other fighters out there that Till would prefer to fight. I mean, there's, like I said earlier, Colby Covington. There's Rafael dos Anjos. There are other fighters up there who Till would rather fight than Edwards, but I think Till's the sort of guy who will take any fight. If he was offered that Edwards fight, I'm sure he'd take it, and especially if it was in the UK, because Till does love fighting in the UK. Maybe if they could do it in Liverpool. I know Leon Edwards is a northerner as well, so that could be a fight that they could make, yeah.
Edwards has said that he would love for the fight to be in Birmingham, which Till quickly shut down and said that he's not too fond of the area, to put nicely.
Dylan, who do you think will come out on top in the Nelson-Edwards fight?
Do you know, it all depends. I think I'll judge it after the first 30 seconds. I mean, if Edwards is able to keep it on the feet, then I think that he's going to have a lot of success in this fight. But if Nelson can get him down quickly, and I think that first takedown defence from Edwards is going to be really important, because if he can survive a takedown, then he's going to gain a lot of confidence, and that will really throw Nelson off, I think, a bit.
Yeah. I want to speak about Özdemir, the other big fight on this London card, but before that, I'd like to just show you the little exchange between Darren Till and Leon Edwards in the press conference last week.
No, you're not on my level, Till.
What?
You're not on my level.
Mate, you took your fucking 5 rounds to finish an old cowboy. I destroyed him in 1 round.
With the chin there.
Which?
You like this?
Mate,
learn how to box.
Okay,
well,
we all have faults in our game, but
no.
that doesn't mean anything.
Amateur.
I box like an amateur.
You box like an amateur.
Okay, mate, we'll see when
Load up with the chin in there.
when your
That's
time
like
comes.
that's what you do every single fight.
Leon, your time's gonna come.
Does anybody have the Wi-Fi password?
I'm not sure what hits harder with those two, their punches or their accents.
Terrible, isn't it? Well, anyway, what did you guys think of that? I mean, they're both fighting separate guys, and here we are in the press conference, and the beefiest part of the whole conference is, two separate fighters in different fights going at each other. It's just...
Look, they're fighters, they're all very competitive, and they're all there to just have a pop at each other, really, aren't they? But look, it just creates that, you know, that inkling for a fight now, isn't it? If they both win their fights, they've got this to fall back on now, and there is a bit of beef there. There is something there now. There's a bit of substance.
Dylan, Özdemir, what do you feel like of his chances? It's his first fight since his loss to Anthony Smith last year in October. Does he have what it takes to bounce back against an unbeaten Dominic Reyes?
And didn't he lose? He lost to DC before that fight as well.
He lost a very one-sided fight to DC.
So I think he needs this victory. Like, and when he was up and coming, it was Özdemir. Like,
he was a train. He was knocking people out. He was running straight through people, which is. It is always sad to see a hype train get derailed, but it's always quite satisfying as well. And it was very satisfying for me to see DC just dominate him in the way he did, because a lot of people forget how good DC actually is. He's only got 2 losses, both to John Jones. And
number 1 pound for pound.
One of them been overturned. And obviously you've got Anthony Smith fighting John Jones now, who Özdemir last loss was to.
There you go.
So. Obviously, Özdemir has lost his last 2 fights, but they have been against 2 very good fighters. Reyes is obviously an up-and-coming fighter who was in the position that Özdemir was in 2 years ago. So Özdemir will be looking to do to Reyes what DC did to him.
Yeah. Okay. So that's enough a little bit of UFC London for now. We're going to move on now to UFC 235, which is this weekend, 3rd of March. T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas. Oh my God, who's excited?
So excited.
Potentially the most stacked card we have ever seen. I'll run through it now with you quickly.
Go for it.
John Jones versus Anthony Smith, crazy. Tyron Woodley versus Kamaru Usman. Robbie Lawler versus Ben Askren. Tisha Torres versus Bailey Zhang. Cody Garbrandt versus Pedro Munoz. Jeremy Stevens versus Magomed Sharipov. And Ovin St. Preux versus Misha Kakunov.
Bosh. And you know what's interesting about this is that the Woodley-Usman fight, they're the 2 last losses of the 2 people that are fighting in UFC London, Till and Edwards. So that's quite interesting to see. And yeah, I can't wait. I cannot wait for this card. I cannot wait.
I mean, even the prelims could be a main event. It's crazy.
I know. You got Zabit in the prelims, don't you? Yeah. So crazy.
I mean, firstly, we'll obviously want to talk about the main event, John Jones. I mean, talk to me, Dubz. You know, all this stuff that's going along around him. We've got a clip to play for you in a second, but just talk me through, obviously, what happened with Gustafsson, how it got to be changed last time.
Well, obviously, look back year and a half ago, he was stripped after his fight against DC due to they found a very, very small amount of metabolites for an anabolic steroid in his system.
Picogram, nanogram, something along those lines.
Picogram, it's like
0.00001 of
tiny.
Yeah. Anyway,
which has no impact on his, physical performance, and I think it is theorised that he got into his system through the, taking bad substances such as like creatine that had obviously been mixed together with substances which are illegal. So obviously it's all been overturned now, and he's good to fight again, and. Yeah, we just got to hope it's the John Jones we were seeing before all this happened.
I'm just so pleased that he has got that licence given to him and he can fight, because he is a special, special fighter.
It's almost just like a cloud above his head at all times.
Yeah.
But
well, let's play this clip quickly. Let's just hear what he had to say about it all.
I'm grateful to be getting drug tested by so many drug testing agencies. I think what it shows is that I have nothing to hide, and that I'm trying to get to the bottom of exactly how this is working in my body and what's going on, just like everybody else is trying to get their head around it. Most important thing to know for the fans at home is that, this picogram situation, it gives me 0 performance-enhancing benefits. That's something that some of the most brilliant scientists in the world has been able to prove, and so considering it gives me no benefits, and it's
So do you think that John Jones is at a point now where he can kind of put this all behind him? He's looking downhill now as is uphill. Or can you see the saga carrying on for a little while longer? Like you say, the testing is getting so good with it now that they can find stuff that he might have taken 4 years ago, and they're still finding it in his system.
Obviously, I think with the media these days, it's every press conference he has, there are going to be questions about it. People are always going to question it, and it's always going to be a weight on his shoulders. But I feel like him now, he's put it in the back of his mind. Obviously, getting that win over Gustafsson was massive. I think Dana White is backing him now. I think USADA seems to be sort of backing him now. So I think everyone sort of knows that steroid testing, it wasn't really as legit or as true as they made it out to be. He wasn't cheating.
No.
He was just very unfortunate by the seams of things. There was such a small amount in his system that it wouldn't even affect anything. So although it is illegal, I think it's all being blown out of proportion. Will it affect his status as the greatest of all time? In a lot of people's eyes, yeah, it will. In my eyes, no, because it hasn't affected his physical performance, and he still runs through guys like they're not there.
Yeah. Right, we're starting to run out of time a little bit here, but we're just going to go through. Dylan, I'm going to ask you first.
Go on.
What fight are you most excited about on this card?
Do you know what? I think I'm most excited for Robbie Lawler Ben Askren. I cannot wait for that fight.
Completely agree.
I mean, he is, what is he, 20-0?
18-0.
18-0, is he?
In those 18 fights, not one point has he looked in trouble, and
no, he's a
and
beast.
Not one point has a clean shot been landed on him. He is a
Crazy
high-level, Olympic-level wrestler. For those of you who may not watch other promotions, he was the Bellator champion. He was also the ONE FC welterweight champion. He boasted 18-0, undefeated record, former Olympic wrestler. He will just pick people up, take them to the ground, and stay on top of them for the rest of the fight. And obviously, coming up against Lawler, who is a straight-up killer. I mean, if anyone's seen his fight against Rory McDonald, it's probably one of the best UFC fights of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Lawler he's been a professional for 16 years. He's been fighting since 2002, which is mental.
So do you think that this Ben Askren Lawler fight, do you think that was the right time for this fight to happen? Do you think Askren was given the right opponent for his UFC debut? Because he's still...
Yeah. There were talks of, him getting thrown in with like a Usman or a DeSanjos or a Till, someone like that. But I think Robbie Lawler is the perfect, because everyone knows who Robbie Lawler is.
Ex-champ.
Everyone knows what he's capable of. So if Ben Askren goes through him like he's not there, it's going to make people realise, all right, this guy's the real deal. We got to look out for this guy.
Is there any chance of the opposite happening, do you think? Do you think actually...
Look, there's always a chance, but from what I've seen of Ben Askren and how dominant I know he is and how good he is at wrestling, I can honestly just see him taking Robbie Lawler down and just giving him a hard time.
And then from there, we've got another clip, sorry. We're going to play another clip. This is what Ben Askren said on potentially fighting Khabib somewhere along the line.
America-Russia is always a great storyline. It always is, from since the Cold War. America and Russia, think about that. Think about how it sells. Think about that.
165, 165 isn't happening.
By that point, we're going to have 20-0 Ben Askren versus 27-0 Khabib. Someone's O's got to go, America versus Russia. I will get on his back and I will chant USA.
Yeah, you saw Dana White mention there about the 165 division not happening, because I don't think we can see Ben Askren going down to 155.
No chance.
He's just too big for that. And Ben Askren's never really going to be fighting for the welterweight strap either, because he won't fight Tyron Woodley, because they're obviously on the same team and they're good friends. So if Ben Askren was going to fight Khabib, that 165 division would have to be made.
And hypothetically, that would be such a good fight.
Yeah.
It'd be the best wrestler the UFC's arguably ever seen is Khabib, and the best wrestler outside the UFC right now has been Ben Askren. So it would be an amazing fight.
Do you think that Askren is rightfully confident, or do you think he's showing a bit of over-arrogance here?
No.
Like you say, he hasn't actually fought in the UFC yet, and for him to be talking about his next bigger fight when he hasn't even fought Lawler yet.
Well, I mean, Ben Askren, he has every right to be completely confident in himself and his ability, because he knows how good he is. He knows that he's been involved in... I know it's not the UFC, but these other organisations aren't no joke. Like, they are still elite-level fighters, and he's literally dominated every single one he's come up against. He's been one of the most dominant performers in MMA for the last however many years. So I think he knows how good he is in himself, so he has every right to feel confident coming into this fight.
Yeah, that's all we've got time for here, guys. Thank you very, very much for joining me in the studio, guys. Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, George.
Yeah, and tthank you very much for listening at home. We'll be back next week for another podcast. We're not sure what it'll be on yet, but we'll let you know shortly. Follow at ParkLife Sport for more updates throughout the day. Thank you very much.
At your man Dubz on Twitter.